Greetings, CATDC. It's Lisa here. And here we go, turning the corner into February. It's amazing. So the pandemic has changed the way you teach, and CATDC has really tried to be responsive to your changing needs. And we also aim to support educators to move out of their silos, to become teachers of teachers, to learn with and from each other. And so today, Ellie Beyers and Liz Gottlieb have taken a moment out of their busy days at Marin Academy to talk about their workshop coming up on February 9th, Strategies for Hybrid and High Flex Learning During Uncertain Times, Creating Broad Frameworks That Do It All. So thank you, Ellie and Liz, for coming. So great to see you. And why don't you start by just telling us about yourselves and the work that you're doing at Marin Academy and beyond, if that applies as educators. And Ellie, why don't you go ahead and start?
Sure, yeah, thank you. So I'm Science Department Chair at Marin Academy, and I also teach chemistry. So a lot of my role is supporting members of my department with their professional growth, providing learning opportunities for them, and then of course all the pieces that go with teaching a lab science course.
Thanks, Ellie. And I teach environmental science, chemistry, and wilderness studies at Marin Academy. I am also the blended coordinator and the co-director of outings, and I coach cross country. And I've been participating in different workshops and roundtables probably once a month, mainly to contribute and hear how teachers are navigating the pandemic and all of the changes associated with that.
Great, thank you. Like I said, very, very busy. I just marvel at how you do it all. And if you can speak to how the pandemic, this is a big, huge question actually, but if you can try to encapsulate in some way, how has the pandemic impacted your teaching and your students' learning? What would be some key ways that your teaching and learning has changed?
Yeah, so certainly the pandemic has thrown so many challenges at us, and many things that have been completely out of our control. And I think the flip side of that is that I feel I've really been able to change and adapt quickly, and look at things from a new lens. So look at really things like, I feel like I'm better at identifying what is the most critical thing that my students need to be walking away from class with today. I feel like I'm better at putting equity at the forefront of what I do in terms of lesson design, assessments, creating labs that are equitable and accessible for all students. So those are a few things. I think one of the big things for the students is that I feel they've become more independent learners. And so I've been better at creating resources for them, videos, curating resources from lots of support from colleagues to then help facilitate their independent learning more easily.
Sounds like a good change. Yeah, Liz, go ahead.
Thanks, Ellie. I would add that, one thing that comes to the forefront is that I've done like less is more and really focused on meeting students with where they are and working on community and not ignoring that piece because we all feel remote and isolated. So that's something that I'm really adding in, and I'm not feeling compelled to cover a certain amount of content. And like many other people, I did have to completely modify 2 classes. I had environmental science and wilderness studies, historically were immersive field experiences. So those courses had to be completely modified. And in that process, like many others, I found that forced creativity and really forced me to look at what are the outcomes and how can I design around the most important outcomes. So it's been a challenge, but I think that creativity and that forcing change, keeps you engaged.
Yeah, I've heard the pandemic described as a slingshot moment, just kind of pushing us out and forward into territory that we didn't even know that we could explore together. So thank you for that. And Liz, can you describe for us what is meant by hybrid high flex teaching? I've heard this term now quite often, and I'm just interested in how you define those terms or that combination of terms.
Yeah, I would define them separately. I would say hybrid learning integrates synchronous and online learning. in the service of learning outcomes. So all students in a hybrid course are expected to follow the same combination of synchronous and asynchronous activities. And typically in a hybrid course, the teacher is making most of those choices about when synchronous activities occur and when asynchronous or online activities take place. Whereas in HyFlex courses, these HyFlex courses are delivered in person and online at the same time. So teachers will be instructing and delivering class simultaneously to students who are in their face-to-face classroom and students who are remote. And in the HyFlex model, teachers are not making all of their choices about where and how students take the course, because of any given day, a student may not be able to be on campus due to COVID or COVID-related exposures. So for schools that are returning to in-person instruction, they most likely are going to need to entertain this HyFlex model.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that's a model that you're already working with at Marin Academy to some degree?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So Liz, can you tell us, or sorry, Ellie, what do you hope participants will gain out of this workshop? And of course, Liz, you can add.
Yeah, I really hope that they walk away from the workshop feeling energized and with a framework and strategies for hybrid and HyFlex teaching and learning. I hope they walk away with tips and tricks and tech tools that are really flexible for all learning environments and all of the different situations that we're in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I know that both of you have been involved with CATDC programming in the past, collaborating on workshops together and separately. And I know you're busy. So what is it that drives you to take on this additional challenge of leading an intensive for CATDC?
Well, I know for me, it kind of goes back to just who I am. I'm a very service-driven and oriented person. That's what initially drew me to teaching. So when the pandemic first began, I knew right away that I had experience with blended teaching. And so it was kind of like, this is my moment. I need to step up and help out and lead as much as I can. That might not be my earmark because there's so much we have to do day to day, but I felt like this was a moment to impact the broader community. And I feel like serving in this way with professionals and colleagues is so good for my well-being when we were all remote and we were in this pandemic. I hope for others that this type of collaboration is good for your well-being, because in many ways now, more than ever before, I feel more connected to colleagues because of these opportunities to, do workshops online and to connect and to lead, which is really interesting because teaching, as you mentioned, can be very isolating, typically very siloed. So this has actually been a new discovery, and it's been very positive for me.
That's great to hear. Yes. And how about you, Ellie?
Yes, I mean, in a similar way, that connection to my colleagues has been huge. I think I've been so lucky to receive and be on the receiving end of professional development through CATDC and conferences across the country and in-house workshops at our school. And I feel like some of those most rewarding moments are when you're collaborating with colleagues and you have new ideas and you get to share them. And as a result, kind of lift each other up. And I think those connections are so important. And I too love facilitating and love to model those teaching techniques in workshops. And yeah, so I'm really excited for our workshop in a few weeks' time.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. We're really excited to have you. And for the CATDC community, we hope you'll join us. There's this workshop coming up February 9th. And for those of you really, zeroing in on pedagogy, we also have inquiry-based design for history and social studies teachers coming up in March. And of course, there's a variety of workshops on many different topics. So we hope you'll join us. And Ellie and Liz, good luck to you with your week. And thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.